TGIF, ladies and gentlemen. It is Friday. Congrats to all you guys getting off work here in a couple hours, ready to start your weekend. Hopefully, you guys got some fun stuff planned. We are here today to talk about the Friday night slate. We got an early slate of 3 games. We did a members-only video for that one. If you guys want it, hey, we got memberships available on the website. We do weekly now. If you just want a weekly membership, you can get the members-only videos. And we're here today to cover the night slate, which is only 6 games, which is freakishly small for a Friday.
Yeah, really, really small for a Friday night. So, yeah, it is what it is. So happy to have baseball back, and we'll take it and hopefully have some bigger Friday night slates in the future.
Yeah, honestly, Friday nights are generally 14 or 15 games because sometimes the Cubs will play at 120 and then it'll be a 14 gamer or it'll be everybody plays. So weird early portion of the year to only have 6 games at night. I know they did incorporate some of those like 5:20 starts last year. So there's like some 12 gamers. This is just weirdly small.
Can't say I'm a fan of tonight, but it is what it is.
We'll deal with what we got, guys. If you're new to the show this year, we're breaking it down slightly differently than years in the past. Not much. This is close to the formula we've been doing, but we're going starting pitcher that we can agree on. A cash hitter for me, a GPP hitter for you, cash hitter for me, GP hitter for you, so on down the road. Not that you can't use cash guys and GPPs and GPP guys in cash if you like them, but this is just a general idea of the breakdown of the show. And today's show is brought to you by our good friends over at Jazz Sportsbook. Look, guys, if you bet on sports, and I know about like half of the DFS industry bets on sports, these are some guys we work with very, very closely. We've had nothing but a good track record with the way that they've helped out our customers that play over there. If you want a free membership to the DFS 5-pack, a variety of ways to get it, but start playing at jazzsports.ag. Our promo code is 5-pack. If you make a first-time deposit, you get a free DFS 5-pack membership. The length of the membership depends on the size of the deposit. If you go $500 plus, though, we'll give you a free annual membership. And if you're going to be betting on sports anyways, these guys have been in business for over 20 years. Same-day payouts, everything that you could be looking for.
Yeah, man, I'm hyped. And I know we've been really busy with baseball and basketball going on, but I am excited, hopefully this weekend, maybe today, to make some betting videos and drafters videos with you.
Amen, guys. Again, like we said, weekly memberships, monthly memberships available through the website. So let's start with our mutual pitcher today. And I think before we even get into Musgrove, it is worth noting that pitching early in the day is projected to be relatively spread out. If that helps in your evaluation, so be it. I know like yesterday, there was 3 popular pitchers. There was Corbin Burns, there was Lance Lynn, there was in Barrios. And he kind of knew those were going to be the popular guys from there. So if you got off the beaten path, you're being a little bit different. Today, there appears to be like 6 or 7 guys getting plenty of love from a pitching perspective, guys that will come in with double-digit ownership percentage. Musgrove, early, his numbers are right near the top, but there's a good chance that there is no, like, quote, super chalk build.
Yeah, agreed. I think it's a type of day where you just play who you think is the best the best plays. You don't even worry about ownership. A lot of these guys are similar in similar spots, et cetera, et cetera. And that said, I know we differentiate a little bit on who we like tonight from a pitching perspective, but we both seem to be fine settling on Musgrove. I like him a lot. I used him in that first start against the Giants. Who was it against?
Arizona,
yeah. Arizona. He was awesome. The only thing we didn't like about that is they pulled him after 78 pitches. They were in full control of that game. He had 8 Ks while he was in there, ended up with 30-plus DK points, which is to end up with close to 32 DK points and only in under 80 pitches is damn impressive. Musgrove's a guy with a lot of talent in a really good spot against a strikeout-heavy, weak Texas lineup, in a ballpark that when you think of Texas, at least when I think of Texas when we talk about it, your first thought is that it's like a hitter's ballpark. But this new Globe Life field is not the same as their old ballpark at Arlington. Musgrove is in a good spot here. I think he's priced right at 8,500, and I like him quite a bit. I think you can basically lock him in for 20 plus in this spot. What about you?
Yeah, I like him today too. And I think it's just a side note talking about the Texas ballpark situation. So one, we have a small sample size, right? One COVID shortened year. We don't know a ton about how this ballpark will play out, but early numbers dictate it being significantly different than the old Texas Park, which had like a jet stream shooting out to right center. Like you could take a leak from home plate and it would just jet over the right field wall. That is not the case with the new one. Also, it's not summer yet. Summer in Texas is when the ball flies. So this is not the pitcher's park. that when you hear Texas, it's always been like Coors Field and Texas. These are the places you don't want to throw guys. This doesn't appear to be the same thing.
Agreed. You know, we've been talking a lot about where we would like grade pitchers. Where would you grade Musgrove?
Like as far as like a letter grade for how he is?
Yeah.
I think his career has him as a B minus, but I think his stuff is better than that. And he's still young and he's healthy as he ever has been. So I think he's on like, he has the potential upward trajectory of being like an A minus type of pitcher.
Okay, I agree with you. His career has been probably like B minus ish, but I think like right now he's like a B plus pitcher.
Okay, and that's fair. And like he has the potential to work his way up to being one of the better pitchers in baseball. Maybe not, you know, like DeGrom level type of stuff, but being one of those better pitchers in baseball.
Right, being like, you know, a solid SP2. I'll ask you this, like, who do you think's better right now, Musgrove or Chris Paddock?
I don't have an answer for you. That's a good question. I don't know.
Fair enough.
All right, next up. So I'm going to go a little bit off the beaten path today and talk about a guy most of y'all aren't familiar with. His name is Mike Trout. Haha, just kidding. He's the best hitter in baseball probably still. He's so good. He's on fire. I think for cash games, you have to find a way to make him a priority. When he is playing like this and he's going to be the highest or potentially the highest owned hitter on the slate, it's just good to get him into your cash lineups. One thing worth noting, FantasytipsMatt was absolutely dominant in his first start, but it's not Matt's today. DraftKings has it wrong. They're going with more of a bullpen in a committee type of day. So it's not FantasytipsMatt that he is going against. Whether that changes your evaluation or not, I think it's worth noting. That'll probably get changed here eventually. He's just on fire right now. He's really, really good, and he's going to be super high owned. Make him a priority in cash games. However, GPP fade based on ownership? Hell yeah, man. Absolutely. That makes a lot of sense. I don't think you have to fade him. I just don't think in baseball, it's not the same thing.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like it just, Mike Trout could easily get walked twice today and like line out twice. Like I watched my boy Lorenzo Cain yesterday get flat out robbed by St. Louis defense of like 24 DK points in 2 at-bats. That can happen in baseball. You don't get as many tries. When Russell Westbrook is out there on his own in basketball against, you know, the Sacramento Kings, like he's going to eat almost guaranteed unless the game's lopsided. Baseball players are not the same thing. So when you get a stud, even in a stud in one of the better spots on paper, he's not a lock for 20 points today. I mean, even if he gets a double, a 2-run double in a walk, and then, you know, makes outs on the rest of it, it's only 11 points. That is completely fadeable.
For sure. I do think, and, you know, obviously talking about this stuff gets me excited. I do think it's important to note what you said, though. It doesn't mean you have to fade him. Like, no. I'll say this. If I'm stacking the Angels, like, I'm not going to fade Mike Trout. But I will probably, you know, if I'm doing that and, like, planting my flag on the Angels, I will have, like, an Angel stack that doesn't have Mike Trout in it. So I'll have, like, exposure to both. But it's not like you have to fade him because he's high owned. But unlike the NBA where, like, you have to play these guys that are in great spots, like, there's many scenarios where Trout isn't great here, as you mentioned.
Yeah, absolutely. They're just different sports in that essence.
Yeah.
And you lock Trout into cash games. But like, let's say I was doing 10 GPP lineups tonight, for example. You know, I'd probably play Trout in like 3 of them. And there's a good chance he comes in with like 17 points and you can win with or without him.
He could get hit by 2 pitches tonight and hit a sacrifice fly and then walk in his other at bat. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, that stuff happens.
Yeah, or there's also the very, very common scenario that he walks, hits an RBI double, gets a sac fly to different at bat. He comes in with 11 points, and he can both be on or not on the GPP winners of the day.
For sure.
All right, next up, the Moises Alou, boys and girls. Hottest team in baseball offensively to start the year, Cincinnati Reds. I'm glad we talked this one out. The kid from Arizona had a nice first start, but we're not scared of him at all. It is really worth noting the Reds are raking to start the year, and there's only a couple teams in baseball that can say that.
Yeah, Moustakas is a big part of that. You can see the numbers, just crushing the ball right now. Really, really cheap for his upside. The whole Red stack is in play. Moustakas is my favorite piece. I think you like the stack a little bit more than I do, but I completely get it. I mean, he is just way too cheap for his upside right here. He's 2,000 less than Mike Trout. Like, he's 2,000 less than guys that he should be the same price as. Not saying that he should be the same price as Mike Trout, but other guys around there. Yeah, the more I talk about this, and there's other third basemen I like, but if I'm making like one tournament lineup, I think he's the guy. I mean, I almost think he's the guy in all formats.
There's only a couple teams raking to start the year. The Astros, which I'll talk about here momentarily, the Reds, and well, the Dodgers, because like they're always raking a little bit, but most outside of that, I mean, most of these teams can't hit right now.
4,100 is cheap, like for a guy of whose stock is his ilk.
No arguments here. I mean, you picked them to talk about him, but I mean, I was the guy getting a little bit more excited about the Reds. There are not a lot of teams in great spots today because the slate is loaded with at least above average to good pitching. And the kid from Arizona, he had a nice first start. But, like, who are you picking on today? We're going to talk about the Astros here in a second going up against Sean Manaea. Like, who are the gas cans on the mound today that you want to just slam hitters against? They're few and far between.
For sure.
All right. Speaking of those Houston Astros I keep alleviating to, let's talk about Carlos Correa. So you mentioned this already as we talked about the Astros on the members-only video. I thought you were a Sean Manaea fan. Look, I like Manaea. I think he's a solid pitcher. He's not a great pitcher, though. And there's a lot of good pitchers going today. Whether you want to talk about, we mentioned the Joe Musgroves of the world, and just look up and down the starting pitcher roster. A lot of them are pretty solid. Zach Wheeler, Charlie Morton, for example. I'm not going with the Astros today because I think Manaea is a scrub, but he's not the strongest pitcher on the slate. And the Astros lineup, unlike some of these other ones, they're actually hitting, and they're actually pretty good. So Carlos Correa is hot right now. He's on a 6-game hit streak. He's had multiple hits in I think half those games. Doesn't run quite as often as he did when he was younger, but he still has pretty good power in a good lineup. He's always hit left-handed pitching well. And again, the Astros are actually hitting, which can't be said for most of the teams in baseball right now. I saw yesterday the Chicago Cubs, for example, team batting average is below the average of all starting pitchers in the National League this year for batting average.
That's pathetic. I see they did hit a couple homers yesterday, but I digress. As far as the Astros go, yeah, man. I mean, I think it's kind of a redemption year for them. These guys look good. Their lineup looks like right there with the Dodgers is the best lineup in baseball. Obviously, the Reds have been really good. But I don't think it would surprise anyone if at the end of the year, the Astros were like the top offense in baseball.
They brought Alvarez back this year. That kid has got like power for days and weeks and months.
They lost Springer, who's real good, obviously. I mean, Springer's real good. But they kept Brantley, which is good for them. And they gained Alvarez back. And Tucker's like real good, I think. So their lineup is still really, really solid. A guy like Correa, I mean, they've always crushed lefties. And Correa is one of the main guys. At 4,500, he's also too cheap.
Bregman's a top 10 hitter in baseball. And Altuve looks like he might have a bounce back season.
You could make the case Bregman's a top 5 guy.
Sure. Absolutely. I mean, that's tough.
It's tough. But
Mike Trout.
I think, would you have Soto definitely ahead of Bregman?
Not definitely. How about like Freddie Freeman?
I think those guys, him and Bregman are close.
Yeah, I think it's a really, really good conversation. Obviously, you put Mike Trout up there, and then, that's one spot's gone. But then it's like you take a look at a guy who's on the IL right now, but Fernando Tatis. Is he already better than Bregman? I can't say that.
No, I can't say that either.
Mookie Betts.
Yeah, Mookie Betts is maybe you could say he's slightly better than Bregman, but I think Bregman's right there.
Yeah, he's a good hitter, man. So it's a good team. Anyways, let's keep going down there. Speaking of Tatis, let's talk about his San Diego Padres. Post Tatis, because he's one of the more exciting players. Side note, we mentioned this in members only, but that's great news that we might see him again in as soon as like 2 weeks, as opposed to thinking he might be out for the season. But post Tatis, the Padres will not get the same attention. He is a guy people want to see play. They're not as good without him, but there's still some decent hitters in this lineup, including a guy like Jerkson Profar, who's a switch hitter at only 3,200. I like switch hitters because you can't bring in a guy to neutralize them later in the game.
Now also San Diego adds the DH. So like a better reason I felt comfortable about talking him out, because now they add a spot in their lineup, already missing Tatis. A guy that used to play in Texas, has really good history against them. Only 3,200. And I really wanted to bring him up because I wanted to talk about an unknown stack, and that's the Padres. Like you mentioned, they're getting a lot less love with the Tatis out of the lineup. They're one of the better spots on the slate. The problem is they're really expensive. Machado, Eric Hosmer, over 11K combined. Well, Profar gives you that exposure at a really cheap price point. He's got nice pop. Big games coming for him. I've watched a bunch of his at bats. Switch hitter, as you mentioned. I like him a lot here. I think you can one off him or use him as a cheap piece of that stack.
Exactly. Either way is going to work for you. And you need to have the occasional one-off thrown into your lineup. If you're stacking the Astros or something like that, they're not super expensive, but they're expensive enough that a price point like a 3,200 Profar, who's not an elite power hitter, but he can hit a home run. He's not an elite base stealer, but he'll throw in a few stolen bases throughout the year.
Yeah.
He can get some upside in a spot like this.
Good point. So one other thing, though, and you mentioned about the stolen bases, he's not like a prolific base stealer, but San Diego is like one of the only teams that runs a lot. So that helps him.
Yeah, man, there's nothing like throwing in like a Garrett Hampson yesterday, who didn't do anything well, but he managed to score a couple of runs. He had a weak single, but then he got on base via the fielder's choice, and he ran. Getting that 5-point bonus is huge. I think Miles Straw had a stolen base last night, and so did Dexter Fowler. And I played that 2-game slate, and those guys both stealing a base is why I went from not being in the money to, tripling my money.
Yeah, the Angels are another team that will run.
So it is nice to have guys who can throw that in. There is at least a possibility. And Profar won't have 40 stolen bases this year. I mean, he might have 7 to 11 of them.
I could also easily see him batting like 6th today.
Yeah, bump up in that lineup a little bit. So I'm with it, guys. That's what we got for today. We've given you multiple ways to get a DFS 5-pack membership. We'd love to have you guys come join the team. We got a lot of sports. We got NBA playoffs coming up in the near future. I know a lot of people are getting excited for that. I'm definitely hyped. And we still got like 155 games of baseball left.
Yeah, sure do.